From Extra to Emperor of the Screen. Chapter 1. The Rain, the Truck, and the Rebirth. The rain in Hengdian World Studios always felt colder than anywhere else in China. 26-year-old Lin Chen pulled his cheap, faded jacket tighter around his shoulders, shivering as he stood under the leaking canvas awning of a prop tent. His shoes were soaked through, a mixture of mud and stagnant water squelching between his toes with every shift of his weight. Around him, dozens of other background extras huddled together like wet sparrows, their faces a collective mask of exhaustion and hollow hope. "Look, look, that's young Master Lu's customized trailer," someone whispered, pointing toward a massive, gleaming silver RV parked near the main set. Lin Chen followed the man's gaze. Lu Feng, a 20-year-old idol who had risen to fame 3 months ago through a survival reality show. He couldn't act, couldn't hold the sword correctly, and memorized his lines by reciting numbers. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, relying on post-production dubbing to save him. Yet, Lu Feng was the male lead, and today, Lu Feng's manager had casually handed the only speaking extra role of the day, a loyal guard who dies protecting the protagonist, to a wealthy investor's nephew who had just arrived on set in a sports car. Lin Chen lowered his head, staring at the script crumpled in his trembling, calloused hand. It was a role he had queued up at 4 in the morning to audition for. The director had even nodded at him, praising his solid posture. But a single phone call from a producer had wiped away 8 hours of waiting in the rain. 8 years. For 8 years Lin Chen had drifted through Hengdian. He had played nameless corpses rotting in the mud, faceless rebels cut down by the dozens, and background pedestrians blurred into insignificance. He lived on $3 instant noodles in a moldy basement apartment that smelled of damp concrete. His youth was gone. His peers from the film academy had long since changed careers, and his parents back home regularly called to beg him to give up his delusion and find a real job. Is talent really worthless in front of capital? Lin Chen thought, a bitter, suffocating despair wrapping around his chest. If I just had one real chance. Just one. "Hey, extras, pack it up. The shoot is canceled for the night. Young Master Lu says the rain is ruining his makeup," the assistant director shouted, waving a megaphone dismissively. "No pay for the evening shift. Come back tomorrow." A collective groan echoed through the crowd, but no one dared to argue. To offend an assistant director meant being blacklisted from the entire studio network. Lin Chen slowly folded the crumpled script and shoved it into his pocket. He walked out into the downpour, his mind completely numb. The neon lights of Hengdian's commercial street blurred into streaks of red and blue through the heavy rain. He felt hollow, as if the 8 years of fighting against an invisible wall had finally crushed the last spark of life inside him. As he stepped onto the crosswalk, a blinding flash of high beams shattered the darkness. The harsh roar of a heavy truck engine tore through the sound of the rain. Lin Chen turned his head, his eyes widening as the massive grille of an out-of-control vehicle rushed toward him. There was no time to scream, no time to run. Boom! A violent impact shattered his bones. Lin Chen felt himself flying through the air, hitting the cold asphalt with a sickening thud. The taste of copper flooded his mouth. As the rain washed over his face, mixing with his blood, his vision began to fade into a dark, endless void. So, this is how it ends. A nameless extra, even in death. "Wake up! Hey kid, wake up! Are you deaf?" A sharp slap to the shoulder snapped Lin Chen out of the darkness. He gasped, drawing a massive lungful of air as he bolted upright. He wasn't lying on the cold, wet asphalt. He was sitting on a hard plastic stool. The air smelled intensely of cheap hairspray, cigarette smoke, and sweat. "What are you dazing out for? If you don't want the body double gig for the fire scene, there are 50 guys outside begging for it." A middle-aged man with a clipboard and a cigarette dangling from his lip glared down at him. Lin Chen stared at the man. His mind spun violently. Director Zhao? Zhao was a notorious low-budget casting director in Hengdian, but he had left the industry in 2024 after a tax scandal. Why was he here? Lin Chen frantically looked down at his hands. They weren't covered in scars from the truck accident. His skin was smoother. His joints didn't ache with the chronic rheumatism he had developed after years of sleeping in damp basements. He pulled out his shattered, outdated smartphone from his pocket and checked the screen. May 14th, 2023. 3 years ago. He hadn't died. He had traveled back in time. He was 23 again, right in the thick of his most desperate years, 3 years before the fatal accident. Before Lin Chen could fully process the cosmic absurdity of his situation, a cold, mechanical, genderless voice resonated directly inside his mind. Ding! Host soul synchronization complete. Detecting extreme obsession with the art of performance. Conditions met. God-level acting system activated. Lin Chen froze, his breath catching in his throat. A system? A translucent, glowing blue holographic screen materialized in front of his eyes. It was sleek, minimalist, and visible only to him. / God-level acting system. Host, Lin Chen. Age, 23. Acting level, untutored professional, grade D. Reputation, 0. Absolute nobody. Double PP. Character immersion, locked. Memory space, locked. Master actor templates, locked. Emotion control, locked. Reality observation, locked. Emotion control, locked. This system does not provide wealth, physical enhancements, or script shortcuts. The path to the throne of the screen must be carved by the host's own craft. The system only provides the tools to unlock absolute artistic perfection. Lin Chen's heart hammered against his ribs like a trapped bird. As a modern youth, he knew what a system meant. It didn't matter that it wouldn't give him billions of yuan or turn him into a flawless supermodel overnight. To an actor who loved the craft more than life itself, the promise of absolute artistic perfection was worth more than all the gold in the world. Hey, I'm talking to you. Are you doing the scene or not? Director Zhao barked, snapping his fingers aggressively in front of Lin Chen's face. It's 3 lines. You play a dying soldier in the trenches. $50 for the afternoon. Take it or leave it. Lin Chen looked up. The confusion in his eyes vanished, replaced by a sharp, burning intensity that made Director Zhao instinctively step back a half-inch. I'll take it, Director Zhao, Lin Chen said, his voice steady and grounded. Thank you for the opportunity. Ding! First mission triggered. The first spark. Complete the role of dying soldier with a performance evaluation of grade A or higher. Mission reward. Unlock system ability, character immersion, and emotion control. 10 minutes later, Lin Chen was pushed onto the set of The Great River, a mid-budget historical war drama. The set was a chaotic mess of artificial smoke, dirt trenches, and shouting crew members. Lin Chen wore a heavy, stiff wool uniform covered in artificial mud and fake blood. He was instructed to lie down at the bottom of a trench, propped up against a sandbag. The scene was simple. The protagonist, a heroic captain played by a rising B-list actor named Zhang Wei, would run through the trench, find Lin Chen dying, and Lin Chen would deliver his 3 lines before expiring. Listen up, extra, the assistant director muttered, adjusting Lin Chen's position with a rough shove. When the captain grabs you, you say your lines. Captain, the ridge, we held it. Then you cough blood and die. Don't overact. Don't steal the camera from Zhang Wei, understand? Understood, Lin Chen nodded. As the assistant director walked away, Lin Chen closed his eyes. The chaos of the set faded. He didn't have the system's character immersion unlocked yet, but 8 years of unyielding dedication and thousands of hours of observing real human suffering flooded his consciousness. He didn't need a cheat code to know how a dying youth felt. He had felt like he was dying just an hour ago on that rainy asphalt. He allowed his mind to sink into the cold reality of 1940. He wasn't Lin Chen, the failed actor. He was a 19-year-old peasant boy who had left his mother to defend a nameless hill, whose chest had just been torn open by shrapnel. Action! The director's voice echoed through the megaphone. Boom! A dirt bomb exploded nearby, showering the trench with debris. Artificial smoke rolled heavily across the ground. Zhang Wei, wearing a pristine, barely smudged officer's uniform, stumbled through the smoke, his eyes scanning the ground. He spotted Lin Chen, rushed over, and dropped to his knees, grabbing Lin Chen's collar. "Soldier! Soldier! Hold on!" Zhang Wei shouted, his delivery theatrical and textbook. When Zhang Wei looked down, his words instantly caught in his throat. Lin Chen's eyes were wide, dilated, and glazed over with the terrifying, empty stare of someone whose soul was actively slipping away. His breathing wasn't a dramatic gasp. It was a shallow, wet, rattling wheeze, the true medical sign of a punctured lung. The mud on his face was mixed with real sweat, and his lips trembled with a violent, uncontrollable chill. For a split second, Zhang Wei forgot his next line. The sheer, raw reality radiating from the extra beneath him struck him like a physical blow. This wasn't acting. This looked like a boy actually dying in his arms. The director behind the monitor shifted forward, his hands gripping the arms of his chair. "Zoom in on the extra," he commanded the camera operator, his voice dropping to a whisper. "Now." Lin Chen raised a trembling, mud-caked hand. He didn't grab Zhang Wei's uniform dramatically. Instead, his fingers weakly clutched at the captain's sleeve, like a drowning child reaching for a floating reed. "Captain." The voice that came out of Lin Chen was a broken, raspy whisper, hollowed out by agony, yet terrifyingly clear. A thick glob of fake blood, mixed with saliva, spilled naturally from the corner of his mouth. "The ridge." His eyes suddenly flashed with a momentary heartbreaking spark of lucid pride, the final surge of a dying man's spirit. "We held it." The spark instantly vanished. Lin Chen's hand lost all strength, sliding off Zhang Wei's sleeve and dropping heavily into the mud. His eyes remained half open, staring blankly into the gray sky, completely lifeless. The silence that followed was absolute. The artificial smoke drifted across the trench. Zhang Wei knelt there, his hands still hovering in the air, his heart pounding in genuine shock. The background extras, executing their movements in the distance, slowed down, realizing the atmosphere on set had completely shifted. Behind the monitor, the director sat frozen. He forgot to look at the script. He forgot the timeline. He even forgot the main lead. Seconds ticked by. 10 seconds. Finally, the director slammed his hand on the desk, his voice cracking with a mixture of awe and excitement. "Cut! Cut! Exceptional! Who is that extra? Get his name right now!" Ding! Mission completed. The first spark. Performance evaluation, grade S, masterpiece level for extra roles. System rewards issued. Ability unlocked. Character immersion level 1. Ability unlocked. Emotion control level 1. Reputation points plus 500. Lin Chen lay in the mud for a moment longer, before slowly blinking and sitting up. He wiped the fake blood from his chin with the back of his hand. As he looked around at the stunned expressions of the camera crew and the pale face of the B-list lead actor, a calm, razor-sharp smile formed on his lips. The extra was dead. The Emperor of the Screen had just been born. Chapter 2. The Shocked Director and the Audition Invite. The silence on the set of The Great River cracked like thin ice under a heavy boot. Zhang Wei, still kneeling in the mud, slowly let his hands drop to his sides. His palms were shaking. He was a recognized B-list actor, a graduate of a prestigious drama academy, and he had just been completely outacted by a 50 yuan a day extra. The raw, terrifying realism in Lin Chen's eyes had made him forget his lines, breaking his immersion entirely. "Hey kid, you okay?" Zhang Wei whispered, his voice tense as he watched Lin Chen sit up. Lin Chen didn't answer immediately. He took a deep, steady breath, deliberately shifting his breathing pattern away from the ragged, wet wheeze of the dying soldier back to his normal rhythm. He closed his eyes for a fraction of a second, using his 8 years of built-up discipline to detach himself from the character's lingering phantom agony. When he opened them, the hollow, glazed look was entirely gone. He looked like an ordinary, calm young man. "I'm fine, Teacher Zhang. Thank you for your care," Lin Chen said, standing up and offering a polite, humble bow. Zhang Wei stared at him, stunned by how quickly the young man had pulled himself out of the play. To dive so deep into a character and detach instantly without any emotional hangover, that wasn't the skill of an extra. That was the hallmark of a monster. Before Zhang Wei could say anything more, a frantic clicking of footsteps echoed through the mud. Director Feng, a strict, heavy-set man in his late 40s, who rarely smiled on set, came rushing down into the trench himself. His assistant director and 2 camera operators scrambled to keep up with him, dragging heavy cables through the dirt. "Where is he? Where is the kid who just died?" Director Feng bellowed, his eyes sweeping over the crowd. "Director Feng, I'm here," Lin Chen said quietly, stepping forward. Director Feng stopped dead in his tracks, sizing up Lin Chen. The young man was covered in artificial mud, his uniform was soaked, and he looked thin, but his posture was straight as a spear. There was no flattery or desperation in his eyes, only a profound, unshakable calm. "What's your name? Which agency are you with?" Director Feng demanded, his tone sharp but burning with intense curiosity. "My name is Lin Chen, Director. I'm an independent extra. I don't have an agency," Lin Chen replied honestly. Director Feng's eyebrows shot up. An independent extra? A talent like this was drifting in Hengdian without a manager? He immediately turned to the camera operator. "Play back the monitor footage, now." The small crew huddled around the portable playback screen. As the scene replayed, the surrounding extras sneaked closer, eager to see what had caused such a massive stir. On the screen, the contrast was stark. Zhang Wei's performance was clean, professional, but ultimately artificial. It looked like acting. But when the camera pushed in on Lin Chen, the atmosphere changed. The shallow, wet rattle of his breath, the subtle, uncontrollable tremor of his lower lip, and that final, heartbreaking flash of pride before his eyes turned into empty glass. It was absolute perfection. "Look at this," Director Feng whispered to his assistant, pointing a trembling finger at the screen. "Look at the micro-expressions. He didn't just recite the lines, he lived the death. This kid gave me a silver screen quality performance in a television war drama." The assistant director, who had previously pushed Lin Chen into the dirt and told him not to steal the camera, was sweating profusely. He swallowed hard and nodded. "Yes, Director, it's incredible." Director Feng turned back to Lin Chen, a rare, genuine smile breaking across his stern face. "Lin Chen, right? Good, very good. You didn't just play a soldier. You gave that nameless corpse a soul. I've been directing for 15 years, and I haven't seen a young man with this kind of raw, gripping power in a long time. Director Feng's favorability toward you has increased significantly. Current favorability, 75 out of 100. Appreciative mentor. Reputation points, plus 300. Total, 800. Hearing the system's mechanical chime in his mind, Lin Chen remained perfectly composed. He bowed slightly. "Thank you for the praise, Director Feng. I only did what the role required." "Humble, too," Director Feng muttered, his appreciation growing. He turned to his assistant. "Go to the accounting tent. Give this kid 500 yuan for the day, and change his billing from a background extra to a featured speaking role." "Yes, Director," the assistant hurried off. 500 yuan instead of 50. It was a tenfold increase, but to Lin Chen, the money was secondary. The real prize was the validation and the unlocked potential in his mind. Director Feng reached into his vest pocket, pulled out a sleek matte black business card, and handed it to Lin Chen. "Our crew will be wrapping up in Hengdian in 3 days. Next week, I'm holding a casting call in Shanghai for a major supporting role in my next modern detective film, The Silent Witness. The character is complex, a deeply traumatized youth suspected of murder. I want you to come and audition." The surrounding extras gasped. an invitation to a closed-door audition from director Feng himself. For an extra, this was equivalent to a peasant being granted an audience with the emperor. Countless envious eyes locked onto Lin Chen, some filled with jealousy, others with pure awe. Lin Chen took the card with both hands, his fingers gripping the edges firmly. "I will be there, director. I won't disappoint you." "Good. Clean yourself up and get some rest." Director Feng patted his shoulder before walking back to his chair, shouting through his megaphone to resume filming. An hour later, Lin Chen walked out of the Hengdian studio gates. The heavy rain had finally stopped, leaving behind crisp, cool air and a dark sky painted with orange neon from the city lights. He had 500 yuan in his pocket, but more importantly, he had a clear path forward. Walking down the wet sidewalk, Lin Chen called out to the system in his mind. "System, open my status panel." A clean, translucent blue screen instantly flashed into his field of vision. God-level acting system. Host, Lin Chen. Age, 23. Acting level, promising novice, grade C. Reputation, 800, local notoriety. System abilities. 1. Character immersion, level 1. Unlocked. 2. Memory space, locked. 3. Master actor templates, locked. 4. Emotion control, level 1. Unlocked. 5. Reality observation, locked. Lin Chen focused his gaze on the newly unlocked abilities. Character immersion, level 1, allows the host to instantly align 30% of their emotional and psychological frequency with any designated character script, drastically reducing the time needed to understand a role. Emotion control, level 1, allows the host to trigger basic macro emotions, joy, anger, sorrow, fear, within 1.5 seconds, delivering flawlessly natural physical responses without internal resistance. A thrill of excitement rushed through Lin Chen's veins. Even without these abilities, his 8 years of future experience had allowed him to score an S-grade evaluation on a simple 3-line role. Now, with his future experience combined with the system's supernatural tools, what kind of height could he reach? Suddenly, his old smartphone vibrated violently in his pocket. The caller ID displayed a name that caused his eyes to narrow into cold slits. Manager Wang. Wang Liang was a low-level agent for Star Horizon Entertainment, a predatory third-tier talent agency in Hengdian. In his past life, Lin Chen had been foolish enough to sign an absolute slave contract with this man, desperate for any shred of legitimacy. For 5 years, Wang Liang had sucked him dry, taking an 80% cut of his meager earnings, while throwing him into the most degrading, dangerous stunt roles without any insurance. Lin Chen slid the screen to answer. "Hello? Where the hell are you?" Wang Liang's grating, arrogant voice blasted through the speaker. "I just got a call from Director Zhao's assistant. He said you walked into Director Feng's set today and got a featured speaking role. And you got 500 yuan? News traveled fast in Hengdian. An extra catching a director's eye was prime gossip. "Yes," Lin Chen replied, his voice entirely flat, devoid of any warmth. "Ha, good. You finally did something useful, you useless piece of trash." Wang Liang laughed loudly on the other end. "Listen up. Bring that 500 yuan to the office tomorrow morning. According to your contract, the agency takes its share. Also, I have great news for you. Young Master Lu Feng's team needs a reliable, quiet stunt double for an upcoming historical drama. The pay is crap, but you get to be in the same frame as an idol. I already signed you up. Come sign the paperwork tomorrow." A stunt double for Lu Feng. In his past life, Lin Chen had taken that exact job. He had jumped from a second-story roof into a poorly padded cart, shattering his left ankle, an injury that gave him a permanent slight limp and effectively killed any chance of him ever playing a leading man. Lu Feng got the credit for the action star stunt, while Lin Chen was tossed aside with a measly 2,000 yuan for medical bills. Lin Chen stood under a street lamp, his face cast in shadow. A cold, sharp chuckle escaped his lips. "Lin Chen, are you laughing? Did you hear what I said?" Wang Liang barked, annoyed by the lack of submissive gratitude. "Manager Wang," Lin Chen spoke slowly, each word dripping with an icy, lethal calm. "I won't be coming to the office tomorrow, and I won't be doing any stunts for Lu Feng." There was a stunned silence on the other end, followed by an explosive roar. "What did you say? Are you out of your mind? You signed a contract with Star Horizon. If you break it, the breach of contract fee is 50,000 won. A penniless dog like you can't even afford 50 won. Do you want to be blacklisted from the entire industry?" "Then blacklist me," Lin Chen said quietly. "As for the contract, read the clauses carefully, Manager Wang. Star Horizon failed to provide me with a baseline living stipend for 3 consecutive months, which legally invalidates Section 4 of our agreement. Our contract is already void. Goodbye." Before Wang Liang could scream another word, Lin Chen hung up the phone. He didn't just hang up, he immediately blocked the number, cutting off the shackles of his past life with a single tap. 50,000 won? To the old Lin Chen it was an astronomical sum. To the current Lin Chen, it was a minor speed bump. He looked down at the matte black business card from Director Feng in his hand. The audition for the Silent Witness was in 7 days. That role would be his true stepping stone, his first real weapon to smash through the wall of capital and nepotism. Lin Chen looked up at the clearing night sky, his eyes burning with an unquenchable fire. The audition in Shanghai. Let's see what this system can really do. Chapter 3. The Basement Training and the Journey to Shanghai. The rental basement apartment in the outskirts of Hengdian was exactly as Lin Chen remembered it. 8 square meters of cramped, suffocating reality. The air was thick with the scent of damp concrete and cheap instant noodles. A single naked light bulb hung from the ceiling, casting harsh shadows across a peeling wall covered in taped-up monologues from classic plays. In his past life, this room had been his prison. Tonight, it was his training ground. Lin Chen sat cross-legged on his narrow cot, his eyes closed. He had spent the last 48 hours ignoring the frantic, threatening text messages from Wang Liang's burner numbers. The predatory agent had tried everything from legal intimidation to outright curses, but Lin Chen had simply deleted the notifications. In the grand scheme of his second life, Wang Liang was nothing but a speck of dust. His entire focus was now locked onto the matte black business card resting on his small wooden desk. The Silent Witness, directed by Feng Ruichang. System, Lin Chen called out in his mind. How do I utilize the unlocked abilities to prepare for the audition? Ding. System abilities are passive-active hybrids. To train effectively, the host can activate character immersion while reading a script fragment or analyzing a character archetype. Given that the host does not possess the full script for the Silent Witness, the system recommends using reality observation to construct a baseline archetype. Lin Chen nodded, but reality observation is currently locked. System notice. Reality observation can be unlocked prematurely by spending 500 reputation points. Does the host wish to unlock it? Unlock it, Lin Chen answered without hesitation. Reputation points were meant to be spent to increase his core strength. Ding. Spending 500 reputation points. Unlocking ability. Reality observation, level 1. Remaining reputation points, 300. Reality observation, level 1, allows the host to hyperanalyze the physical habits, psychological tics, and emotional defense mechanisms of real-world individuals, storing them as behavioral data to construct realistic performances. The moment the ability unlocked, a sharp wave of clarity washed through Lin Chen's mind. His senses felt heightened, his memory of every person he had ever interacted with over his 8 years of drifting becoming crystal clear. Director Feng had told him that the role in The Silent Witness was a deeply traumatized youth suspected of murder. Lin Chen closed his eyes and began to pull from his memory banks. He recalled a real-world case he had read about in his past life, a young boy who had spent weeks in police interrogation, falsely accused, entirely isolated, cracking under the psychological weight of a world that had already judged him guilty. System: activate character immersion. Target archetype: the traumatized suspect. Ding! Character immersion level 1 activated, aligning 30% of host's emotional frequency with the target archetype. A sudden freezing chill settled deep within Lin Chen's chest. The warmth of his tiny room seemed to vanish. His breathing instinctively grew shallow, trapped behind his ribs. A heavy, suffocating weight pressed down on his shoulders, the psychological simulation of absolute isolation and terror. Under the influence of the system, Lin Chen opened his eyes. The calm, sharp gaze of a reincarnated actor was completely gone. Instead, his pupils dilated slightly, darting around the small basement room with a mixture of hypervigilance and profound exhaustion. He pulled his knees up to his chest, his fingers tightly interlocking, the knuckles turning white. His shoulders hunched forward defensively, trying to make himself look as small, as invisible as possible. He looked at the corner of the room, his lips parting slightly. No sound came out, but his throat twitched, a physical manifestation of a trauma response where vocal cords lock up under extreme stress. This was only a 30% immersion, yet the physiological accuracy was frighteningly perfect. For the next 4 days, Lin Chen lived in a state of controlled madness. He would immerse himself into the character for hours, testing his physical reactions, refining the micro-expressions, using his newly unlocked emotion control to seamlessly shift between raw terror and dead-eyed numbness. When the emotional strain became too heavy, he would deactivate the system, ground himself, and log his progress. By the 5th day, his preparation was complete. He had spent 400 of his 500 yuan on a clean, simple white button-down shirt, a pair of dark slacks, and a high-speed train ticket from Yiwu Station to Shanghai. May 21, 2023. Shanghai Film Studios Casting Office. The contrast between the gritty, muddy trenches of Hengdian and the gleaming, air-conditioned hallways of the Shanghai casting office was staggering. The corridor outside Audition Room 3 was packed with handsome young men, their clothes meticulously styled, their hair flawlessly coiffed. These weren't background extras. These were contracted actors from reputable agencies, fresh graduates from the Shanghai Theater Academy, and mid-tier idols looking to transition into serious cinema. Lin Chen sat quietly in a plastic chair near the end of the hall. Compared to the glamorous candidates around him, his cheap, unbranded clothes and slightly pale skin made him look like an outsider. "Look at that guy," a handsome young actor in a designer jacket whispered to his manager a few seats down. "Did he wander in from the street? Does he even know what kind of production Director Feng is running?" The manager sneered quietly, checking his watch. "Ignore him. Probably some independent extra trying his luck. Focus on your lines. Remember, young Master Lu Feng's agency tried to pull strings for this role, but Director Feng refused. The director wants raw acting power for this character. This is your chance to shine." Lin Chen heard the whispers clearly, but his expression didn't change. He simply leaned his head back against the wall, his eyes half closed. Lu Feng's agency had tried to pull strings? Lin Chen smiled inwardly. In his past life, the role of the traumatized suspect in The Silent Witness had eventually gone to a second-generation wealthy actor who completely botched the performance, leading to the character being panned by critics and severely dragging down the movie's ratings. This time, that wouldn't happen. "Number 47, Lin Chen, you're up," a staff member with a clipboard shouted from the doorway of Audition Room 3. Lin Chen stood up, smoothing down his white shirt. As he walked past the whispering actors, a sudden aura of intense gravity seemed to radiate from him. The casual, relaxed demeanor he had held while sitting down vanished. With every step he took toward the door, his posture shifted, his breathing slowed, and his eyes grew unnaturally calm. The actors who had been mocking him suddenly stopped talking. an instinctual, inexplicable sense of pressure tightening in their chests as he passed them. Lin Chen pushed open the door and stepped into the audition room. The room was spacious and brightly lit. Behind a long table sat 4 people: the casting director, the screenwriter, a representative from the investing production company, and in the center, director Feng Ruichang. Director Feng looked exhausted, rubbing his temples over a stack of rejected resumes. But the moment Lin Chen walked in, Feng's eyes snapped open, a glint of recognition and excitement flashing within them. "Lin Chen, you actually came," Director Feng smiled, leaning forward. The other 3 judges looked at Director Feng in surprise. It was incredibly rare for the notoriously strict director to show such immediate warmth to an unknown, unrepresented actor. "Hello, Director Feng. Hello, teachers," Lin Chen said, bowing politely at a perfect 45-degree angle. The investor's representative glanced at Lin Chen's sparse, single-page resume and frowned. "Director Feng, this candidate has no official agency, no previous notable credits, and lists his experience primarily as a background extra in Hengdian. Are you sure he belongs in this tier of auditions?" Director Feng waved his hand dismissively. "I saw him perform a 3-line deck scene in the mud last week, and he gave me goosebumps. Don't look at the resume, look at the talent." He turned his gaze back to Lin Chen, his expression turning deadly serious. "Lin Chen, the character you are auditioning for is named Xu Wei. He is 19 years old. His mother was murdered in their home, and because he was found covered in her blood, the police have interrogated him for 48 hours straight. He is innocent, but he is broken. Show me his state of mind." The casting director handed Lin Chen a single sheet of paper containing a short monologue. It was a scene where Xu Wei finally speaks to a defense attorney after hours of silence. "You have 2 minutes to prepare," the casting director said. Lin Chen didn't look at the paper for long. He already knew the core of the character. He took a deep breath, closed his eyes, and gave a command in his mind. "System. Activate character immersion. Activate emotion control, level 1. Ding. Abilities activated successfully." When Lin Chen opened his eyes and looked up at the judges, the entire atmosphere inside the audition room froze. The confident, polite young man who had just bowed to them had utterly vanished. In his place stood a shattered ghost. Chapter 4. The Silent Collapse. The transition was so sudden that the investor's representative dropped his pen. It clattered loudly against the wooden table, but no one looked down. Every eye in the room was locked onto Lin Chen. The young man didn't start speaking immediately. Instead, his body began to undergo a terrifying physical transformation. His shoulders caved inward, pulling his chest tight, as if he were trying to fold himself into a microscopic space. His hands, previously resting loosely at his sides, rose with a violent, involuntary tremor. He didn't clasp them dramatically. He gripped his own left wrist with his right hand, squeezing so hard that the skin turned a sickly, bloodless white. But it was his eyes that made Director Feng's breath catch in his throat. They were completely bloodshot, staring not at the directors, but at a fixed, empty spot on the floor about 2 feet in front of him. The pupils were wide with a primal animalistic terror, yet frozen over with a layer of absolute, dead-eyed exhaustion. It was the exact gaze of a person who had spent 48 hours under blinding interrogation lights, watching his entire world burn into ash. System notice. Character immersion frequency aligned at maximum baseline. Emotion control maintaining suppressed panic. Lin Chen's lips parted. They were dry, moving with a slight painful friction. When he spoke, the voice didn't belong to a 23-year-old actor. It was a raw, cracked whisper that sounded like sand scraping against rust. "I didn't do it." The 4 words were barely audible, yet they carried a weight that filled every corner of the silent room. He didn't shout them. He didn't cry. It was the flat, monotone repetition of a phrase that had been beaten out of him 1,000 times over the last 2 days. Lin Chen slowly lifted his head. His gaze crawled up the wall, finally meeting Director Feng's eyes. But he wasn't looking at Feng. Through the lens of the system simulation, he was looking at his defense attorney. His final, desperate anchor to reality. Lin Chen's voice hitched. A single violent convulsion rippled through his throat. A perfect physiological mimicry of a gag reflex triggered by a horrific memory. The blood it was so warm. When I pulled the knife out, it wouldn't stop. "Stop right there," the screenwriter suddenly interrupted, his voice trembling slightly as he leaned forward. "Xu Wei, the police said you didn't call the ambulance for 20 minutes. Why? What were you doing in that room?" This wasn't in the provided script fragment. The screenwriter was improvising, throwing a curveball to test the actor's adaptability and psychological depth. Outside the room, a normal actor might have broken character or paused to think of a clever reply. But Lin Chen didn't blink. Under the absolute grip of character immersion, he was Xu Wei. The question didn't register as an acting prompt. It registered as a direct accusation. A sudden, sharp gasp tore from Lin Chen's lungs. His entire body recoiled, as if he had been struck. The suppressed panic inside him exploded into a cold, trembling despair. I was holding her," Lin Chen whispered. A tear, entirely natural and uncontrolled, welled up in his left eye, and traced a slow path through the artificial grime on his cheek. "She was cold. I thought if I held her tight enough, she would stay warm. I didn't know 20 minutes had passed. I just wanted her to breathe. Why won't anyone believe me? Why do you keep asking?" By the final sentence, his voice didn't rise into a theatrical scream. Instead, it cracked into a pathetic, suffocating wheeze. He collapsed to his knees right there on the carpeted floor, his head burying into his hands, his spine shaking violently with silent, agonizing sobs. He didn't make a sound. The silence of his crying was infinitely more devastating than any loud wailing. It was the sound of a boy who had been completely broken by the world, who no longer expected anyone to help him. The casting director sat with her mouth slightly open, a hand pressed against her chest, feeling a genuine, aching sorrow radiating from the young man on the floor. The screenwriter looked down at his own script, his hands shaking slightly. Director Feng didn't say a word. He simply watched the small, trembling figure of Lin Chen on the floor. He knew with absolute certainty that no Academy graduate, no idol with tens of millions of fans, could ever replicate the sheer, terrifying depth of what he had just witnessed. This wasn't acting. This was a soul being laid bare. System notice. Performance concluded. Deactivating character immersion. Deactivating emotion control. The cold, oppressive weight vanished from Lin Chen's mind. The simulated trauma dissolved into thin air. Lin Chen took one deep, grounding breath, placing his palms flat on the floor. When he stood up, the trembling stopped instantly. His shoulder back, his spine straightened, and the weeping, broken boy disappeared. He wiped the single tear from his cheek with a calm, practiced motion, bowing deeply to the panel. "My performance is over. Thank you, teachers." The contrast was so violent, it felt like whiplash. One second they were looking at a shattered murder suspect, and the next, a polite, entirely composed young man stood before them. The investor's representative swallowed hard, his previous arrogance entirely wiped out. He turned to Director Feng and whispered, "Director Feng, this kid." Director Feng didn't answer him. He stood up from his chair, walking around the long table, until he stood directly in front of Lin Chen. He looked at the young man's red, slightly swollen eyes, the only physical remnant of the performance. "You didn't look at the script paper once, after the first 10 seconds, Director Feng said, his voice brimming with a strange mixture of awe and reverence. "The script gave me the words, Director," Lin Chen replied quietly, "but the character gave me his heart. I didn't need to look down." Director Feng stared at him for a long moment before letting out a loud, booming laugh that shattered the lingering tension in the room. He turned back to the audition panel, slamming his hand down on the table. "Cancel the rest of the auditions for Xu Wei," Director Feng announced, his voice echoing through the heavy doors. "We've found our man." The casting director smiled and immediately began pulling out the standard talent contract. Ding! Mission completed. The audition of a lifetime. Performance evaluation. Grade S+. Transcendent realism. System rewards issued. Reputation points. Plus 2,000. Total 2,300. Ability upgrade. Character immersion to level 2. System ability unlocked. Memory space, level 1. Hearing the system's chime, Lin Chen's hands tightened slightly into fists. The supporting male lead of a major theatrical film. Signed, sealed, and delivered. He had officially taken his first massive step out of the shadows of Hengdian. But as Director Feng began discussing the shooting schedule, the heavy wooden doors of Audition Room 3 were suddenly pushed open from the outside. A tall man in a tailored, expensive Italian suit walked in, followed by 2 assistants. His face was cold, and his eyes held the natural arrogance of someone used to controlling the lives of others. Lin Chen turned his head to look at the newcomer. His eyes narrowed instantly. It was Vice President Chen of Star Horizon Entertainment, the parent agency of Lu Feng, and the very company Lin Chen had walked away from just days ago. Chapter 5. Capital versus Craft. The temperature in the audition room plummeted instantly. Director Feng's face darkened as he stared at the intruder. "Vice President Chen, I don't recall inviting Star Horizon's executive team into my casting room. The auditions for The Silent Witness are closed." Chen Hong smiled smoothly, adjusting his platinum cuffs as he walked toward the judge's table, completely ignoring Lin Chen, as if the young man were made of glass. "Director Feng, please forgive the intrusion, but as one of the primary investors representing the consortium behind this film, I believe I have a right to ensure our capital is being spent wisely." He tossed a sleek, glossy folder onto the table, right over Lin Chen's sparse resume. "Lu Feng's schedule has just cleared up," Chen Hong said smoothly. "Our agency is willing to waive 50% of his usual appearance fee to have him play Xu Wei. Furthermore, Star Horizon will inject an additional 5 million yuan into the marketing budget. We only ask that the role go to someone who can actually bring box office guarantees." The investor's representative sitting next to Director Feng immediately perked up. 5 million? And Lu Feng's traffic? Director Feng, this changes things. With Lu Feng, we secure the teenage demographic before the first trailer even drops. Director Feng slammed his fist on the table. Lu Feng can't act his way out of a paper bag. Xu Wei is the emotional anchor of this film. If the audience doesn't believe his trauma, the entire third act falls apart. I've already decided. The role belongs to Lin Chen. Chen Hong finally turned his head, his cold, calculating gaze landing on Lin Chen. He raised an eyebrow, a flicker of recognition passing through his eyes. "Lin Chen? The background extra from our third-tier roster? The one who currently owes our legal department 50,000 yuan for breach of contract?" The casting director gasped, and the investor's representative frowned heavily. "He's in a legal dispute?" "It's a minor administrative matter." Lin Chen spoke up, his voice cutting through the tension like a razor. He met Chen Hong's gaze without a single shred of fear. "An agency that fails to provide a legal living stipend for 3 consecutive months loses all exclusive representation rights under Article 24 of the National Entertainment Standard. Your legal department knows that, Vice President Chen. That's why you haven't sent a formal summons." Chen Hong's eyes narrowed into dangerous slits. He hadn't expected a penniless extra to know the fine print of industry regulations, let alone speak back to him with such chilling composure. In his mind, Lin Chen called out, "System, use reality observation on Chen Hong." Ding, reality observation level 1 activated. Target, Chen Hong. Analysis. Heart rate slightly elevated. Pupils dilated by 10%. Indicates high anxiety regarding the quarterly performance of Star Horizon. He desperately needs Lu Feng to secure a serious cinematic role to satisfy stockholders. Armed with this information, Lin Chen smiled faintly. Director Feng stood up, stepping between Lin Chen and the executive. I don't care about your internal agency disputes, Chen Hong. On my set, acting is king. Lin Chen's audition was a masterpiece. If you force that talentless idol into my movie, I'll pull my name from the credits and walk. The threat was massive. Feng Ruichang was a box office guarantee himself. The room fell into a tense, suffocating deadlock. Chen Hong looked at Director Feng's unyielding expression, then back at Lin Chen. A cruel, manipulative smile stretched across his face. He knew he couldn't force Feng to back down directly without a massive scandal, but he could make the extra break. Fine, Chen Hong chuckled, raising his hands in mock surrender. Director Feng's artistic integrity is legendary. I won't disrupt it. However, if Lin Chen is truly the masterpiece you claim him to be, he shouldn't mind a small wager to satisfy the investors. What kind of wager? Director Feng grumbled. The film starts shooting in 2 weeks. The first major scene Lin Chen has is the intense, single-take police interrogation opposite veteran actor Gu movie emperor-level talent, Chen Hong said, his eyes gleaming with malice. If Lin Chen can suppress Gu Jin's aura and deliver a flawless scene in under 3 takes, Star Horizon will drop all legal claims, cover his contract termination, and double his acting salary. Chen Hong stepped closer to Lin Chen, dropping his voice to a venomous whisper. But if he fails, if he causes even a single delay, he walks off the set. Lu Feng takes over, and I will personally see to it that Lin Chen spends the next 10 years blacklisted from every camera in this country. Do you dare take the bet, little extra? Director Feng's face paled. Gu Jin was a legendary veteran actor known for his terrifyingly intense screen presence. Young actors routinely broke down crying or forgot their lines just looking him in the eye. This wasn't a wager, it was an execution. Chen Hong, don't play dirty, Director Feng started, but he was interrupted. I accept, Lin Chen said clearly. The entire room turned to look at him. Lin Chen stood tall, his eyes burning with an unshakable, terrifying confidence. To a normal actor, Gu Jin was an insurmountable mountain. But to Lin Chen, who possessed 8 years of future insight and a god-level system, this was exactly the stage he craved. Good, a man of courage, Chen Hong laughed coldly, turning on his heel. I'll see you on set in 2 weeks, Lin Chen. Enjoy your 15 minutes of fame while they last. As Chen Hong walked out with his assistants, Director Feng sighed heavily, rubbing his face. Lin Chen, you shouldn't have agreed. Gu Jin is a monster on screen. He doesn't hold back for anyone. Don't worry, Director Feng, Lin Chen said, bowing politely as he took the official talent contract from the casting director. An actor only grows when he faces a stronger opponent. I will see you in 2 weeks. Leaving the studio building, Lin Chen boarded the high-speed train back to his small rental room. He had exactly 14 days to prepare for the clash of a lifetime. Sitting by the window as the landscape blurred past, he closed his eyes and entered his consciousness. System, open my status panel and explain the new ability. Ding, status panel open. God-level acting system. Host, Lin Chen. Age, 23. Acting level promising novice, grade C. Reputation 2,300, local notoriety. System abilities. Character immersion, level 2, unlocked. Memory space, level 1, unlocked. 3. Master actor templates, locked. 4. Emotion control, level 1, unlocked. 5. Reality observation, level 1, unlocked. Memory space level 1, allows the host to enter a specialized, hyper-realistic simulation chamber within their subconscious. The time-dilated ratio is 10 to 1. 10 hours of intense training inside the memory space equals only 1 hour of real-world time. Energy consumption is tied to the host's mental stamina. A massive grin broke across Lin Chen's face. 10 days of training in the span of 1 day. In 2 weeks, he could accumulate nearly half a year's worth of hyper-focused practice. Chen Hong, Lu Feng, Star Horizon, Lin Chen whispered into the empty air, his knuckles whitening as he gripped his armrest. You think capital can buy everything? In 2 weeks, I will show you what absolute terrifying talent looks like. System, Lin Chen commanded, as the train entered a dark tunnel. Activate memory space. Target role, Shu Wei. Total training time, 300 hours. Ding! Initializing memory space. Welcome to the theater of the mind, host. The world around him dissolved into white light. Chapter 6. The Theater of the Mind. The sensation of entering the memory space was like stepping through a wall of cold water. The white light shattered, reconstructing itself into a terrifyingly exact replica of the police interrogation room from the script of The Silent Witness. The walls were a drab, peeling gray. A heavy steel table sat in the center, flanked by 2 uncomfortable metal chairs. Overhead, a single fluorescent light bulb flickered with a low, rhythmic hum. Lin Chen stood in the center of the room, looking down at his hands. He was wearing the dirty, blood-stained wool uniform of the peasant soldier from his first role. Ding! Welcome to the memory space, level 1. Current time dilation 10:1. The host's physical body on the high-speed train is currently entering a deep meditative sleep. System notice. Within this space, the host can materialize any set, props, or script elements to refine their performance. To maximize training efficiency, the system will now strip away all past character configurations and load the raw baseline data for Shu Wei. A sudden ripple passed through the space. Lin Chen's uniform dissolved, replaced by a thin, rumpled jacket and jeans. More importantly, his posture instinctively sank. Let's begin, Lin Chen said aloud, his voice echoing off the simulated concrete walls. System, generate a phantom AI of veteran actor Gu Jin. Set his acting presence to 100% maximum intensity. Ding, generating phantom AI of target Gu Jin. Warning, high-intensity psychological pressure detected. Ensure mental stamina remains above 20% to prevent neural fatigue. Across the steel table, the empty space began to warp. Pixels of light knit together, hardening into the form of a man in his late 40s. He wore a crisp, dark police detective's jacket. His face was etched with deep, severe lines, and his eyes, dark, piercing, and entirely devoid of warmth, locked directly onto Lin Chen. The moment the phantom's eyes met his, a crushing physical weight dropped onto Lin Chen's chest. It was Gu Jin's legendary screen aura. It felt like standing before a tidal wave. The phantom hadn't even spoken a line, yet the sheer gravity of its presence demanded absolute submission. Under this kind of pressure, ordinary rookie actors would freeze, their minds going blank as they instinctively tried to escape the camera's gaze. Lin Chen felt his heart rate spike, his breath caught in his throat. Incredible, Lin Chen thought, a thrill of terrifying excitement rushing through his veins. Even as a phantom simulation, his presence is this overwhelming. In my past life, I never had the qualifications to stand in the same room as a movie emperor. But today I will use you to hone my edge. System. Activate character immersion level 2. Align emotional frequency to 50%. Ding. Character immersion level 2 activated. Alignment 50%. The freezing, isolating terror of Shu Wei flooded Lin Chen's consciousness, far more potent than the 30% baseline he had used during the audition. The sudden influx of trauma crashed against Gu Jin's oppressive aura like 2 tectonic plates grinding together. The phantom detective slammed his hand flat on the steel table. The sound cracked through the room like a gunshot. Shu Wei, The phantom roared, leaning forward, his eyes boring into Lin Chen's soul. Look at me. 48 hours. We've given you water, we've given you food, but my patience is dead. Your mother's blood was found under your fingernails. Tell me the truth. Why did you kill her? The interrogation had begun. Lin Chen, now 50% aligned with Xu Wei, shrank back into his chair, his hands gripping the metal seat so hard, his knuckles popped. He opened his mouth to deliver his line, but under the immense weight of Gu Jin's simulated pressure, his voice cracked completely wrong. It sounded too forced, too theatrical. Ding! Performance deviation detected. Gu Jin's aura successfully suppressed the host's expression. Evaluation, grade F, crushed by opponent. Again, Lin Chen gritted out, wiping a bead of cold sweat from his forehead. The scene reset instantly. The phantom detective snapped back to his starting position, his eyes locking onto Lin Chen once more. Xu Wei, look at me. 48 hours. Again, Lin Chen interrupted 2 minutes later after another failed delivery. Again. In the vacuum of the memory space, time lost all meaning. While minutes passed on the high-speed train outside, Lin Chen spent dozens of hours inside the gray room. He was crushed over and over again. He forgot lines, he overacted, he allowed the panic of the character to swallow his technique, breaking the delicate balance required for high-level screen acting. But with every failure, the system's data analysis fed back into his mind. He began to use reality observation on the phantom, dissecting the exact mechanics of Gu Jin's pressure. The way the veteran actor timed his blinks, the slight lowering of his vocal register to induce panic, the deliberate use of physical stillness to dominate the frame. By the 80th hour inside the simulation, Lin Chen stopped fighting the pressure. An extra fights the camera, Lin Chen realized, a profound epiphany blooming in his mind. A supporting actor fights his opponent. But a master absorbs the opponent's energy and reflects it back. He didn't need to match Gu Jin's roaring anger with equal volume. Xu Wei was a victim, a broken boy. The strength of a broken boy didn't lie in a loud voice. It lay in his terrifying, unyielding silence. The scene reset for the 150th time. The phantom detective slammed his hand on the table. Your mother's blood was found under your fingernails. Tell me the truth. Why did you kill her? This time, Lin Chen didn't flinch. He didn't shrink back. He slowly lifted his head, letting Gu Jin's massive aura wash over him completely. He absorbed the terrifying weight of the accusation, and through the lens of character immersion, he transformed that pressure into an ocean of profound, quiet sorrow. He looked directly into the movie emperor's eyes. His face was entirely still, but a single, rhythmic twitch developed under his left eye. A flawless manifestation of a mind that had crossed the threshold of terror into absolute, deadened numbness. When he spoke, his voice was a soft, hollow rasp that entirely subverted the loud violence of the room. If I wanted her dead, why would I have stayed to clean the wounds? The phantom detective froze for a fraction of a second. The AI script engine, reacting to the sheer depth of Lin Chen's counterpressure, adjusted its performance. The phantom didn't roar this time. Its eyes widened slightly, its body language shifting from pure aggression to a sudden, tense curiosity. The dynamic in the frame had completely changed. Lin Chen hadn't broken under the mountain. He had become a chasm that swallowed the mountain whole. Ding! Performance evaluation. Grade S. Perfect synergy, aura counterbalance achieved. Lin Chen didn't stop. Again he whispered, a sharp manic gleam of ambition in his eyes. Increase Gu Jin's aura to 110%. Let's see who breaks first. Dear passengers, we have arrived at Shanghai Hongqiao Station. Please ensure you have all your belongings. The overhead announcement snapped Lin Chen out of his trance. He opened his eyes, drawing a long, clean breath. The high-speed train was gliding to a smooth halt against the concrete platform. To the passengers sitting around him, he had simply slept for an hour and a half. But inside his mind, Lin Chen had just endured nearly 15 days of brutal, non-stop psychological warfare against the simulated acting legend. He stood up, grabbing his small duffel bag. As he stepped out of the train and into the bustling modern crowds of the Shanghai station, his entire presence had undergone a subtle, invisible shift. His stride was longer, his eyes calmer, and an aura of profound, unshakable gravity seemed to follow him. He had 2 weeks left in the real world before the cameras rolled. Chen Hong, Lu Feng, and the entire production crew were waiting to see him fail. Waiting to watch a nameless extra get devoured by a movie emperor. Lin Chen adjusted the collar of his simple shirt, a cold, confident smile playing on his lips. "Gu Jin," he murmured, walking into the sunlight. "I'll see you on set." Chapter 7. The interrogation begins. The studio lot of The Silent Witness was a well-oiled machine operating at maximum speed. Heavy black cables snaked across the concrete floors. Industrial lights cast a blinding glare over the crew, and the scent of strong black coffee mingled with the dust of freshly painted sets. Today was the official first day of shooting for the film's major dramatic sequences. In a corner of the main soundstage, Chen Hong sat in a plush director's chair that had been brought in specifically for him. He was elegantly dressed in a charcoal gray suit, leisurely swirling a cup of espresso. Behind him stood Lu Feng, the idol whose face was plastered across billboards nationwide. Lu Feng was casually scrolling through his phone, occasionally checking his reflection in a small pocket mirror held by an assistant. "Relax, Lu Feng," Chen Hong said smoothly, taking a sip. "Today is just a formality. Director Feng thinks he found a diamond in the rough, but he forgets what happens when a piece of glass meets a diamond drill. Gu Jin will shatter that extra in the very first take." Lu Feng smirked, not even looking up from his screen. "I just hope the kid doesn't cry too loud when he gets kicked off the set. My schedule is tight next week, Vice President Chen. I want to wrap my scenes quickly." A few yards away, director Feng Ruichang was pacing back and forth nervously, checking his monitor. He looked over at the makeup station where Lin Chen was sitting. Lin Chen remained perfectly still as the makeup artist applied dark, sunken circles under his eyes and paled his complexion to mimic extreme sleep deprivation. He hadn't said a word since he arrived. He didn't check his phone, he didn't try to chat up the crew, and he didn't look at the script in his lap. He sat like a stone statue, his eyes fixed on the blank wall before him. "Lin Chen," Director Feng walked over, his voice dropping low. "Gu Jin is already in the interrogation room set. He's been in character for the last hour. Remember what I told you. Don't look at him as a legend. Look at him as the detective who wants to ruin your life. Stand your ground." Lin Chen slowly lifted his head. The makeup artist instinctively took a step back, startled by the sudden coldness in the young man's gaze. "I'm ready, Director Feng," Lin Chen said quietly. His voice carried an unnatural, hollow stillness that made the director's chest tighten. The set of the interrogation room was stiflingly small, built with 3 solid walls to create a claustrophobic atmosphere for the cameras. A heavy steel table sat in the center, bolted to the floor. Sitting on one side of the table was Gu Jin. The 48-year-old movie emperor looked imposing. His hair was cropped short, his trench coat was slightly rumpled, and his eyes possessed a terrifying, predatory sharpness. He didn't look up when Lin Chen entered the set. He simply sat there, tapping a heavy metal pen rhythmically against the table. Tap, tap, tap. Every click of the pen felt like a heartbeat counting down to an execution. Lin Chen walked into the set, dressed in the wrinkled jacket of Xu Wei. He didn't look at the cameras, nor did he acknowledge Chen Hong and Lu Feng watching from behind the director's monitor. He walked straight to the empty metal chair opposite Gu Jin and sat down. The moment Lin Chen sat down, Gu Jin's tapping stopped. The veteran actor raised his eyes, unleashing the full, crushing weight of his legendary screen presence. It was a psychological pressure built from decades of mastering the craft, a raw, heavy aura designed to dominate the space and force the other actor into a subordinate position. Outside the set, director Feng held his breath. Chen Hong leaned forward, a smug grin forming on his lips, waiting for Lin Chen to flinch, to look away, or to sweat. But Lin Chen didn't move a muscle. Inside his mind, the system panel flashed silently, reality observation detecting target's psychological pressure wave. Character immersion level 2, activating. Emotional alignment, 60%. Emotion control level 1, activating. Triggering state, numb despair. Lin Chen let his shoulders slump inward slightly, his spine curving defensively. But his eyes remained locked onto Gu Jin's. He didn't fight the veteran's aura with anger or defiance. Instead, he became a vacuum. He absorbed the terrifying pressure, letting it wash over him, reflecting back a deep, bottomless void of a broken 19-year-old who had already lost everything. Gu Jin's eyebrows twitched almost imperceptibly. A flicker of genuine surprise flashed deep within his eyes. This kid isn't breaking. All departments quiet on set. The assistant director's voice boomed through the studio. Scene 14, shot 1, take 1, action. The heavy silence of the room was shattered, as Gu Jin suddenly slammed both hands flat on the steel table, leaning his massive frame forward until he was inches from Lin Chen's face. "Shu Wei!" Gu Jin roared, his voice vibrating with a terrifying, calculated rage that made the audio technician's meters spike into the red. 48 hours. We've given you water. We've given you food, but my patience is dead. Your mother's blood was found under your fingernails. Tell me the truth. Why did you kill her?" The explosion of anger was so visceral that Lu Feng, watching from the monitor, physically recoiled in his chair. But Lin Chen didn't blink. Under the absolute grip of character immersion, he didn't see a movie emperor. He saw the tyrant who had kept him awake under blinding lights for 2 days, while his mother lay in a morgue. A sudden, uncontrolled tremor rippled through Lin Chen's lower lip. He didn't pull back from Gu Jin's terrifying face. Instead, he leaned forward slightly, his eyes wide, bloodshot, and burning with a fragile, manic desperation that entirely subverted the detective's loud violence. He spoke, his voice a cracked, dry whisper that forced everyone behind the monitors to strain their ears to hear. "If I wanted her dead," Lin Chen's voice hitched, a single tear spilling flawlessly from his left eye, tracing a path through the grime on his cheek. "Why would I have stayed to clean the wounds?" The delivery was so whisper-thin, yet so intensely packed with grief and raw truth, that it sliced cleanly through Gu Jin's roaring aura. Gu Jin froze. For a fraction of a second, the veteran actor's calculated performance faltered. His eyes widened slightly, as a cold shiver ran down his spine. He hadn't expected a counter-pressure this precise, this devastating. The young man before him wasn't just acting. He had dragged Gu Jin directly into a real, suffocating interrogation room. Behind the monitor, director Feng Ruichang's jaw dropped. He forgot to look at his notes. Chen Hong's espresso cup froze halfway to his mouth, his smug grin completely evaporating from his face. Chapter 8. Shifting the Balance. The silence inside the studio was so heavy that the low hum of the cooling fans on the heavy lighting rigs sounded like a distant storm. Behind the monitor, director Feng Ruichang didn't dare to breathe. His eyes were glued to the primary camera feed, which was locked in a tight close-up on Lin Chen's face. The single tear trailing through the simulated dirt on the young man's cheek was a stroke of absolute organic genius. It wasn't the loud, ugly crying of a rookie trying too hard to show emotion. It was the quiet, terrifyingly realistic collapse of a human spirit. Inside the claustrophobic set, Gu Jin's veteran instincts kicked in within a fraction of a second. He was a movie emperor for a reason. He felt the shift in the room's gravity, felt himself being dragged from the position of the dominant interrogator into the role of an unwitting persecutor. Instead of backing off, Gu Jin doubled down. He adjusted his stance, his face hardening into a mask of professional, cold cynicism. He picked up the heavy metal pen from the table, pointing it directly at Lin Chen's chest. "Clean the wounds?" Gu Jin's voice dropped an octave, becoming a sinister, quiet growl that vibrated with immense psychological weight. "Or were you trying to destroy the DNA evidence, Xu Wei?" "The forensics report says the throat slit was clean, precise. It takes a cold hand to do that, a hand that doesn't shake." Gu Jin leaned even closer, his eyes boring into Lin Chen's like twin drills. "Show me your hands, boy. Let's see how much they shake right now." It was a brilliant counterattack. Gu Jin was using his massive physical presence to crowd Lin Chen, attempting to force a clumsy reaction that would break the extra's immersion. Behind the monitors, Chen Hong's knuckles turned white as he gripped the armrests of his chair. "Yes," he thought fiercely. "Crush him, Gu Jin. Show this arrogant nobody the difference between capital and a street rat." But Lin Chen's internal processing was operating at a speed no human actor could achieve alone. Ding. Reality observation detecting microshift in target's performance. Gu Jin's screen presence, 105% sustained pressure. System warning. Mental stamina dropping to 78%. Maintain emotional equilibrium. Lin Chen didn't panic. Thanks to the hundreds of hours he had spent fighting the simulated phantom of Gu Jin inside the memory space, he recognized this exact tactical maneuver. Gu Jin wanted physical movement. He wanted a dramatic gesture. So, Lin Chen gave him absolute stillness. He didn't lift his hands immediately. Instead, he let his gaze drop slowly to the steel table, staring at the spot where Gu Jin's hands rested. Then, with an agonizing glacial slowness, Lin Chen raised his right hand and placed it flat on the cold metal. His hand wasn't shaking violently. It was completely, terrifyingly still. But then, under the hyperfocus of the camera lens, the index finger of Lin Chen's right hand gave a sudden, sharp, involuntary twitch. Just one. Then his whole wrist stiffened, the tendons locking up as if he were fighting a massive internal war, just to keep from shattering into pieces. "I didn't," Lin Chen whispered. His voice was no longer a plea. It was entirely hollowed out, the voice of a ghost. "I didn't hear her scream. Detective, if I killed her, why can't I remember her screaming?" He slowly looked back up, his bloodshot eyes staring right through Gu Jin, looking at something far beyond the walls of the room. "Every time I close my eyes, it's just the sound of the rain, and the kitchen clock. Ticking. Tick, tick." Lin Chen's head gave a tiny, almost imperceptible tilt, his pupils dilating as if he were genuinely listening to a phantom clock in his mind. Why didn't she scream for me? The raw, chilling horror of that delivery hit the set like a physical wave. Gu Jin felt a cold sweat break out across the back of his neck. The young man wasn't just countering his pressure anymore, he was completely controlling the emotional frequency of the scene. By maintaining absolute physical stillness, while projecting a mind completely fractured by trauma, Lin Chen had turned the interrogation table into a psychological mirror. Gu Jin's aggressive detective suddenly looked small, loud, and entirely out of his depth against the quiet grandeur of true madness. For 2 full seconds, Gu Jin couldn't speak. He forgot his next prompt. His mouth opened slightly, a genuine, unscripted look of profound shock flickering across his veteran features. He had been suppressed. A movie emperor had just been completely suppressed by a 23-year-old, unrepresented extra. "Cut!" Director Feng suddenly screamed, leaping out of his chair so violently that he knocked his headset onto the floor. "Cut, cut, cut! Oh my God, absolute masterpiece!" The heavy tension on the set shattered instantly. The lighting technicians, the camera operators, and the script supervisors all stood frozen for a beat before a collective, breathless murmur rippled through the studio. They had just witnessed a historic moment. A nameless extra had not only survived a head-on collision with Gu Jin, but he had also completely dominated the frame. Lin Chen immediately took a deep, grounding breath. Ding! Deactivating character immersion level 2. Deactivating emotion control. Performance evaluation, grade S+, absolute domination. Reputation points, plus 1,500. Total, 3,800. The hollow, haunted look vanished from Lin Chen's eyes. His shoulders squared back, and he stood up from the metal chair, offering a deep, respectful 45-degree bow to the veteran actor opposite him. "Thank you for the guidance, Teacher Gu," Lin Chen said, his voice entirely calm and professional. Gu Jin remained seated for a moment, staring at the steel table. Then a slow, deep chuckle rumbled in his chest. He stood up, shaking his head as he looked at Lin Chen with a mixture of disbelief and profound respect. He didn't look like a terrifying detective anymore. He looked like an old master who had just discovered a peerless sword. "Guidance?" Gu Jin laughed, reaching out and slamming a heavy hand onto Lin Chen's shoulder, gripping it tightly. "Kid, you almost made me forget my own name out there. Where the hell did Director Feng find a monster like you?" Across the studio, Chen Hong's face was the color of curdled milk. The espresso cup in his hand trembled violently, spilling dark liquid over his expensive tailored trousers. He didn't even notice. He stared at the monitor, his mind spinning into absolute chaos. One take. It had taken only one take for Lin Chen to deliver a performance that would undoubtedly be studied in film academies for the next decade. According to the wager, Star Horizon had just lost all legal claims against Lin Chen. They had to cover his contract termination, and they had to double his salary. But worse than the financial loss was the terrifying realization that the extra they had thrown into the dirt was a dragon waiting to soar. Lu Feng, standing behind his manager, had completely dropped his phone. His face was pale, his eyes wide with a mixture of intense jealousy and deep, instinctual fear. He looked at Lin Chen standing beside the movie Emperor, receiving the praise of the entire crew, and for the first time in his pampered life, the idol realized that his millions of fans and capital backing couldn't protect him from absolute terrifying talent. Lin Chen turned his head slowly, his sharp, calm gaze locking directly onto Chen Hong and Lu Feng across the crowded stage. He didn't say a word. The quiet smile on his lips said everything. The extra was officially gone. The ascent of the Emperor had begun. Chapter 9. The Shockwave and the System Upgrade. The aftermath of that single take was nothing short of a political earthquake within the soundstage. Chen Hong didn't say a single word. He didn't look at Director Feng, and he certainly didn't look at Lin Chen. With a face as rigid as stone, he turned on his heel and strode out of the studio, his leather shoes clicking sharply against the concrete. Lu Feng hurried after him, like a frightened shadow, his previous arrogance entirely evaporated. Director Feng didn't care about their departure. He rushed onto the set, his face flushed with an ecstatic, almost manic joy. "Brilliant! Lin Chen, that was an absolute masterclass," Feng shouted, clapping his hands together. "Did you see that twitch in your finger? The stillness? Gu Jin, you old fox, you were pushing him hard, but this kid just swallowed your aura whole." Gu Jin let out a booming laugh, lighting a cigarette now that the cameras were off. "Director Feng, don't flatter me. The kid didn't just swallow my aura, he nearly gave me a heart attack. If he keeps acting like this, the rest of the industry is going to starve." Lin Chen stood quietly amid the praise, a polite, modest smile on his face. He thanked the director and the veteran actor before walking back to his designated rest area. The moment he sat down on his simple plastic chair, the attitude of the surrounding crew shifted dramatically. The assistants who had previously ignored him now rushed over, one offering a warm bottle of water, another bringing over a portable fan. In the entertainment industry, respect wasn't given, it was seized by absolute strength. Lin Chen took a sip of the water and closed his eyes, instantly diving into his consciousness. "System, pull up the logs and rewards," he commanded in his mind. Ding! Processing performance data for Scene 14, Shot 1. Opponent analysis, veteran actor Gu Jin, acting level Grade S, Movie Emperor baseline. Performance evaluation, Grade S+, absolute domination. The host successfully inverted the power dynamic against a Grade S opponent, while maintaining flawless character psychology. Wager condition met. Star Horizon Entertainment's legal shackles have been forcibly severed by capital alignment. Contract termination processing complete. System rewards issued. Reputation points, plus 3,500. Total, 7,300. Ability upgrade, reality observation to level 2. Unlock progress, master actor templates, 73% toward unlocking. Lin Chen looked at his skyrocketing reputation points and felt a surge of deep satisfaction. 7,300 points. He was accumulating influence much faster than he had anticipated, entirely due to the high-difficulty opponents he was facing. Ding! System notice. The host has accumulated over 5,000 reputation points while maintaining an unbroken streak of Grade S or higher evaluations. Conditions met for System version 2.0 upgrade. Does the host wish to initiate the system upgrade? Cost, 5,000 reputation points. Upgrade time, 10 minutes. Upgrade, Lin Chen ordered without a moment's hesitation. He knew that as the production progressed, the complexity of his roles would only grow. He needed every advantage he could get. Ding! Deducting 5,000 reputation points. Remaining points, 2,300. System upgrade initiated. Progress, 1%, 12%, 45%. While the system was upgrading, Lin Chen opened his eyes back to reality. The assistant director approached him, holding a newly revised script packet with a look of profound respect on his face. "Teacher Lin," the assistant director said, using the respectful title reserved for established actors. "Director Feng and the screenwriter just huddled up. Because your chemistry with Teacher Gu is so explosive, they are expanding your scenes. They want to add a sequence showing Shu Wei's psychological descent before the murder. Here is the new material." Lin Chen took the papers. "Thank you. I'll review it immediately." In his past life, an extra getting their role expanded was a mythical event. Usually roles were cut to give more screen time to brainless idols. But here, true talent was forcing the hand of the creators. He flipped through the new pages. The added scene was a monologue. Shu Wei, sitting alone in his dark bedroom hours before the tragedy, talking to his own reflection in a broken mirror. It was a scene of pure, unadulterated psychological horror, a transition from a terrified boy to a completely detached husk. It was highly complex, requiring an actor to portray multiple layers of fractured identity simultaneously. Right on cue, the mechanical chime resonated in his brain once more, sounding sharper and more refined than before. Ding! System version 2.0 upgrade complete. New functions unlocked. Character resonance and attribute matrix. Hashtag God-level acting system V2.0. Host Lin Chen. Age 23. Acting level Rising Star Grade B. Reputation 2,300. Industry whispers. Attribute matrix. Physical control 65-100. Fluid. Vocal resonance 70-100. Gripping. Micro-expression mastery 82-100. Flawless. Presence aura 78-100. Dominating. System abilities. 1. Character immersion level 2. Unlocked. 2. Memory space level 1. Unlocked. 3. Master actor templates. Locked. 73% progress. 4. Emotion control level 1. Unlocked. 5. Reality observation level 2. Unlocked. Character resonance level 1. New unlocked. A part of the HPSS level 1. allows the host to inject a sliver of their own real-world life experiences and core philosophy into the character, creating a performance that is not just realistic, but uniquely artistic and impossible to replicate by any other actor. Lin Chen stared at the new attribute matrix and the description of character resonance. A cold, sharp light flashed in his eyes. This new ability was exactly what separates a great actor from a legendary one. A great actor can copy reality. A legendary actor redefines it. He looked across the set. Chen Hong might have left, but the battle wasn't over. Star Horizon would undoubtedly try to sabotage the film's release, or use their media connections to smear his name before the movie even hit theaters. Lin Chen tightly gripped the new script pages, a fearless smile spreading across his face. "Let them try," he whispered to himself. "With this system and these new scenes, I will make Shu Wei a character that the entire nation will never forget." Chapter 10. The Broken Mirror. The shooting schedule moved like a runaway train. By 10 o'clock that evening, the main soundstage had been completely transformed. The claustrophobic, gray walls of the interrogation room were gone, replaced by a meticulously constructed set of a cramped, dilapidated 1990s apartment bedroom. Dust motes floated in the beams of the heavy tungsten lights. A vintage, cracked wooden wardrobe stood against one wall, its cheap glass mirror spiderwebbed with fractures right down the center. This was the set for the newly added monologue, Shu Wei's final night of sanity. Director Feng Rui Chang sat behind his monitor, drinking hot tea to stay awake. His eyes were bloodshot, but his mind was buzzing. "Is the lighting ready? I want it dim. One key light from the left side, mimicking a street lamp through the window. The right side of his face must stay completely in shadow." "Lighting is set, Director," the gaffer called out. "Where is Lin Chen?" Director Feng asked, looking around. "I'm here, Director Feng." Lin Chen walked onto the set. He had spent the last 2 hours completely isolated in a dark dressing room, utilizing the upgraded system functions to map out this entirely new performance. The crew grew quiet as he stepped onto the creaking floorboards of the bedroom set. He looked different. The previous state of numb despair he had used during the interrogation had shifted. Now there was an unsettling, fragile lightness to his movements. He walked like a ghost, barely making a sound, his eyes wide and fixed on the cracked mirror across the room. Ding! Reality Observation Level 2 activated. Analyzing set environment. Target: cracked mirror. Strategic value: splintered reflections can be used to visually manifest a fractured psyche. Recommendation: utilize the split glass to isolate different facial expressions simultaneously. Lin Chen sat down on the edge of the small, unmade bed, directly facing the wardrobe. "Lin Chen," Director Feng's voice came over the studio speakers, softer than usual. "This scene has no partner to feed you energy. It's just you, the camera, and the script. The screenwriter wrote this as a stream of consciousness. Show us how a good boy's mind begins to splinter under the weight of a broken home." "Understood," Lin Chen muttered. He closed his eyes. In his mind, he called out to the upgraded system. "System, activate Character Immersion Level 2. Activate Character Resonance Level 1. Ding! Character Immersion Level 2 activated. Emotional Alignment 70%. Ding! Character Resonance Level 1 activated. Initializing Core Philosophy Injection. System Notice: injecting host's real-world memory, the 8 years of absolute isolation, despair, and being ignored in the rain, translating real-world artistic grief into the character's trauma. A massive, invisible wave of emotional energy crashed into Lin Chen's mind. This time, it wasn't just a clinical simulation of a fictional character's pain. The system was digging into Lin Chen's own past, the suffocating despair of his previous life, the feeling of screaming at a world that refused to look at him, the slow rot of hope. The fusion of Shu Wei's trauma and Lin Chen's real-world artistic grief created a volatile, devastating synergy. Lin Chen's chest violently heaved once. When he opened his eyes, the attribute matrix inside his brain began to glow. Attribute matrix live feed. Micro expression mastery, 82-100. Flawless. Vocal resonance, 70-100. Gripping. Current state, fractured resonance. All departments quiet on set. Camera rolling, the assistant director whispered anxiously. Scene 22, shot 1, take 1, action. The room plunged into a heavy, suffocating silence. Lin Chen sat on the bed, staring at his reflection in the cracked mirror. Because of the spiderweb fractures, his face was split into 3 distinct distorted fragments on the glass. Slowly, a smile crept onto Lin Chen's lips. It wasn't a psychotic, villainous grin. It was a gentle, polite, terrifyingly innocent smile. The kind of smile a boy gives his mother when he's trying to hide a bruised knee. But because of the angle of the key light, that innocent smile was reflected only on the left shard of the glass. On the right shard, which was cast in deep shadow, his eye remained wide, unblinking, and swimming in an ocean of pitch-black horror. "Mom told me I need to buy eggs tomorrow," Lin Chen spoke. His voice didn't use the raspy whisper from the interrogation scene. Thanks to his vocal resonance attribute, it was smooth, soft, and chillingly domestic, like a child reciting a grocery list. He leaned closer to the glass. His right hand rose, his fingers gently tracing the deep crack in the mirror that separated his smiling lips from his dead eyes. "She said, if I study hard, we can move out of this place. We can go to a house where the roof doesn't leak when it rains." Suddenly his voice hitched. The polite smile on his face didn't fade. It remained perfectly frozen on the left side of his mouth. But a massive, silent tremor rippled through his throat. The contrast between the forced smile and the sheer agony in his throat was so violently unnatural that a female script supervisor behind the monitor instinctively gasped, covering her mouth. Lin Chen's reflection seemed to distort as he pressed his forehead directly against the cold glass, right where the cracks converged. "But detective," Lin Chen whispered, his voice suddenly shifting into a hollow, dead tone that sent shivers down the crew's spines. "The roof is already leaking. It's leaking red. It's dripping from the ceiling onto her favorite tablecloth. Why won't it stop dripping?" He simply stared into his own fractured reflection, his pupils completely dilated, portraying a mind that had officially severed its connection to reality to protect itself from a horrific truth. The sheer artistic weight of the performance was suffocating. By blending his own years of real-world psychological isolation into the character, Lin Chen had created a scene that felt raw, biographical, and deeply unnerving. It wasn't just acting anymore, it was high art. "Cut," Director Feng breathed out. His voice was trembling so badly he could barely project it. He didn't leap up this time. He sat frozen, staring at the monitor, his eyes wide with a profound sense of awe. The entire crew remained entirely silent for nearly 10 seconds, completely paralyzed by the eerie magnetic horror of what they had just witnessed. Ding. Performance concluded. Deactivating system functions. Performance evaluation. Grade S+, transcendent artistry. System notice. Character resonance successfully established a unique artistic footprint. This scene cannot be replicated by any other candidate. Reputation points, plus 2,000, total 4,300. Lin Chen pulled his forehead away from the glass. The frozen smile vanished, replaced by his usual calm, composed expression. He stood up from the bed, his posture immediately returning to that of a poised, professional young man. He bowed deeply to the silent studio. "Thank you, teachers. I am finished." Suddenly, Gu Jin, who had been watching from the shadows of the soundstage the entire time, began to clap. The heavy, slow applause of the movie emperor echoed through the rafters. Within seconds, the rest of the crew joined in, a thunderous wave of applause breaking the eerie spell Lin Chen had cast over the room. Director Feng wiped a bead of cold sweat from his neck and walked onto the set, his hands shaking as he grabbed Lin Chen's shoulders. "Unbelievable," Feng whispered, his voice choked with emotion. Lin Chen, you are a monster. With this scene, The Silent Witness isn't just a detective commercial movie anymore. It's going to the international film festivals. I swear to you, I will get you a nomination for this. Lin Chen smiled politely. I only did my best, director. As the crew began packing up the equipment for the night, Lin Chen walked back toward his dressing room. However, just as he reached the corridor, his phone buzzed in his pocket. It wasn't a text from a burner number or an agent. It was an encryption notification from the system itself. Ding! Warning! Global System Network Synchronization active. Detecting high-level energy anomaly within the Shanghai regional film industry. Warning! Another system holder has detected your Grade S+ performance footprint. Rival candidate profile. Initializing. Match found. Lin Chen stopped walking, his eyes narrowing to cold points as he stared at the glowing blue text on his screen. He wasn't alone in this world. The true war for the throne of the screen was finally knocking on his door. Chapter 11. The Shadow of the Rival. The corridor outside the soundstage was dimly lit, the distant rumble of the crew packing up equipment providing a low baseline of noise. Lin Chen stood perfectly still beneath a flickering fluorescent bulb, his eyes locked onto the translucent blue screen hovering in his field of vision. The text was flashing in a sharp, alarming crimson hue, a color he hadn't seen the system use before. Ding! Warning! Global System Network Synchronization active. Detecting high-level energy anomaly within the Shanghai regional film industry. Warning! Another system holder has detected your Grade S+ performance footprint. Rival candidate profile. Initializing. Match found. Candidate name, Jiang Yu. Age 25. System type, Idle Traffic Prosperity System. Acting level, Established Professional, Grade B+. Current reputation, 150,000, Rising Star status. Core ability, Absolute Charm Aura, Forced Audience Empathy. Lin Chen stared at the profile, his mind working with clinical precision. An idle traffic prosperity system. It was the exact opposite of his own. While his system demanded pure, unadulterated craft and psychological depth, Jiang Yu's system clearly capitalized on fame, external manipulation, and superficial appeal. System, Lin Chen called out silently. How did he detect my footprint? System notice. High-level performances, Grade S and above, emit an artistic frequency that registers on the global system network. As the host climbs higher, your presence becomes a beacon for other candidates. The throne of the screen can only support one emperor. All other systems are inherently predatory. A cold, razor-sharp smile formed on Lin Chen's lips. He wasn't afraid. If anything, the realization that he was competing against other supernatural entities fueled a dark, burning ambition deep within his chest. The entertainment industry had always been a battlefield. The system had just given the war a set of rules. The next morning, the film crew of The Silent Witness moved to an upscale corporate office building in downtown Shanghai to shoot a transition scene. Lin Chen sat in the temporary resting lounge, reviewing his modified lines. The atmosphere on set had completely inverted from his first day. He was no longer treated like an intrusive extra. He was handled with the utmost care. Teacher Lin, here is your iced Americano. Less sugar, just how you like it, a young female assistant said, carefully placing the cup on his table with a blush. Thank you, Lin Chen replied, offering a polite, warm smile that made her scurry away in a flurry of excitement. Before he could pick up the cup, the heavy glass doors of the lounge were pushed open. A sudden wave of hushed whispers and excited gasps rippled through the staff in the hallway outside. A young man walked into the lounge, flanked by 4 personal bodyguards and a prominent manager. He was exceptionally handsome, with sharp symmetrical features, perfectly styled silver ash hair, and a tailored designer coat that screamed luxury. Every step he took seemed to draw the light in the room directly toward him. It was Zhang Yu, one of the top-tier rising traffic stars in China, and the current darling of major fashion brands. The moment Zhang Yu stepped into the room, Lin Chen felt a strange, invisible pressure ripple through the air. It wasn't the heavy, grounded weight of Gu Jin's screen aura. It was an artificial, intoxicating pull that practically forced anyone looking at him to feel a sense of admiration and infatuation. Ding! Warning. Enemy absolute charm aura detected in the immediate vicinity. System protection active, countering 100% of psychological manipulation. The host's mind remains clear. His gaze landed directly on Lin Chen. He paused, a flicker of profound irritation and surprise crossing his handsome face, when he noticed that Lin Chen wasn't affected by his presence at all. Zhang Yu walked over, stopping right in front of Lin Chen's table. His bodyguards stood at a distance, blocking the doorway. "So, you're the extra director Feng has been raving about," Zhang Yu spoke, his voice melodious and perfectly modulated, yet dripping with condescension. "The one who managed to trick old man Feng into giving him a legendary evaluation." Lin Chen didn't stand up. He slowly took a sip of his coffee, set the cup down, and looked up into Zhang Yu's eyes. "System," Lin Chen commanded inwardly. "Activate Reality Observation Level 2 on Zhang Yu." Ding! Reality Observation Level 2 activated. Target, Zhang Yu. Analysis. Heart rate 84 BPM, elevated due to hidden insecurity. Left eye blinks 15% faster when looking at the host. Indicates extreme threat perception. His system is currently draining minor energy to maintain his charm aura against you. Armed with the data, Lin Chen leaned back, a calm, mocking glint in his eyes. "If the evaluation was a trick, Zhang Yu, then you shouldn't have any trouble replicating it. But I hear your last 3 projects relied entirely on eye drops for crying scenes, and a team of 20 editors to piece your expressions together." The staff in the room collectively gasped, holding their breath. No one dared to speak to a top-tier traffic star like that. Zhang Yu's face twisted for a fraction of a second, his perfect composure slipping. He leaned down, placing his palms flat on Lin Chen's table, his voice dropping to a harsh, venomous whisper. "Listen to me, little rat. You got lucky in a dark room with a broken mirror. But this industry isn't about art. It's about data. It's about traffic. My fans can bury you with a single hashtag." Zhang Yu sneered, tapping the table with his manicured finger. "I just signed on as a special guest star for the climax of this film. I play the brilliant criminal psychologist who finally breaks Shu Wei in court. When the cameras roll, I will use my system to completely strip away your presence. I will make sure the audience only looks at me, while you look like a pathetic, forgotten prop." Lin Chen didn't flinch. He slowly leaned forward until he was inches away from the rival system holder. The aura around Lin Chen suddenly shifted, drawing upon the absolute, terrifying stillness he had perfected in the memory space. "Then I welcome you to try," Lin Chen whispered, his eyes widening into a cold, predatory stare that made Zhang Yu's breath hitch. "But let me give you a piece of advice, Zhang Yu. A system can make you famous, but on a real set, in front of a real lens, it cannot save you from a superior actor. When we stand frame to frame, I will make sure the audience watches you drown." Zhang Yu instinctively stood back up, a cold sweat breaking out across his lower back. For a second, he had felt a genuine primordial fear looking into the extra's eyes. Without another word, Zhang Yu turned on his heel and stormed out of the lounge, his manager and bodyguards scrambling to follow him. Lin Chen picked up his script, his smile wider and more dangerous than before. Ding! Rival confrontation logged. New main mission triggered, the courtroom execution. Mission objective: completely suppress Zhang Yu's idle traffic system during the climax sequence. achieving a grade S+ evaluation or higher in a direct face-off. Mission reward: unlock master actor templates completely, and plus 5,000 reputation points. A courtroom execution, Lin Chen murmured, flipping the page of his script. What a beautiful title for your downfall, Zhang Yu. Chapter 12. The Grand Courtroom Climax. The final week of production for The Silent Witness culminated in the largest set of the entire shoot. A meticulously designed, high-ceilinged courtroom. Rows of wooden benches filled the gallery, packed with over 100 background extras acting as reporters and spectators. Massive studio lights poured artificial gray daylight through towering frosted windows, creating an atmosphere of clinical, unyielding judgment. This was the climax of the film. Xu Wei, whose mental state had deteriorated entirely, stood in the defendant's dock. Opposing him was the state's star witness, the brilliant criminal psychologist Dr. Song, played by Zhang Yu. Behind the primary monitor, director Feng Ruchang adjusted his headset, his expression incredibly tense. He knew the friction between Lin Chen and Zhang Yu had reached a boiling point. The entire crew felt the electric charge in the air. Zhang Yu sat at the prosecution's table, adjusting his wire-rimmed glasses. He looked exceptionally sharp, handsome, and authoritative. He caught Lin Chen's eye and gave a subtle, venomous smirk. In his mind, Zhang Yu was communicating with his own interface. System: activate absolute charm aura at maximum load. Overlap it with forced audience empathy. I want every camera lens and every extra in this room to be enslaved by my performance. A strange, sweet, almost intoxicating hum began to ripple through the soundstage. The background extras in the gallery, the camera operators, and even the script supervisors suddenly felt their eyes drawn helplessly toward Zhang Yu. Their hearts fluttered with an instinctual, unearned admiration. Lin Chen stood inside the wooden dock, his wrists loosely bound by prop handcuffs. The moment the psychological wave hit him, a sharp chime resonated in his brain, completely neutralizing the mental fog. Ding! System protection active. Countering hostile psychological aura, 100% suppression complete. Host's consciousness remains unhindered. Lin Chen let his shoulders sink into the defensive, broken posture of Xu Wei. He looked down at his cuffed hands, his face a mask of dead-eyed exhaustion, but internally, his mind was cold and razor-sharp. System, Lin Chen commanded, activate memory space combat logs. Load all analysis on Zhang Yu's behavioral patterns. Activate character immersion level 2 at 80% alignment. Activate character resonance level 1. Ding! Character immersion level 2 activated. Alignment 80%. Ding! Character resonance level 1 activated. Injecting host's philosophical edge. Attribute matrix live feed. Physical control 65-100. Vocal resonance 70-100. Micro-expression mastery 82-100. Current state primordial vacuum. Quiet on set, the assistant director roared. Scene 89, shot 1, take 1, action. The judge slammed his gavel. Zhang Yu stood up from the prosecution's table. Backed by his system's forced audience empathy, his movements were impossibly graceful, commanding absolute attention. He walked slowly toward the center of the courtroom, his voice rich, clear, and ringing with a deceptive warmth. Your Honor, members of the jury, Zhang Yu spoke, turning his face at a perfect 45-degree angle to catch the key light. The defense claims the boy in the dock is a victim of psychological trauma. They claim he is too broken to have committed such a brutal crime. Zhang Yu suddenly spun around, pointing a sharp finger directly at Lin Chen. His eyes flashed with a brilliant, hypnotic intensity. But a mind fractured by trauma doesn't hide evidence. Dr. Song's psychological profile proves that Xu Wei didn't freeze out of grief. He froze out of cold, calculated malice. He is a sociopath, masquerading as a broken child. The delivery was flawless for a commercial idol. The extras in the gallery gave a collective, audible gasp. completely swayed by Jiang Yu's system-boosted charisma. The investors' representatives behind the monitor smiled broadly. Jiang Yu was dominating the frame. Jiang Yu walked right up to the wooden dock, slamming his hand flat on the railing, staring down at Lin Chen. "Look at me, Xu Wei. Admit it. You watched her bleed, and you felt absolutely nothing." It was a devastatingly heavy prompt. Jiang Yu was using his system's maximum output to completely squeeze Lin Chen out of the scene, intending to make him look like a blank, lifeless prop. But Lin Chen didn't move. He didn't blink. He allowed Jiang Yu's roaring aura and the system-boosted hostility of the entire room to crash against him. By utilizing his character resonance as a primordial vacuum, he didn't push back against the pressure. He absorbed it, allowing the weight of 100 condemning eyes to refine his character's absolute isolation. For 3 seconds, Lin Chen remained in total, dead silence. The contrast between Jiang Yu's loud, radiant charisma and Lin Chen's total black hole stillness began to warp the tension in the room. Slowly, Lin Chen raised his head. His eyes weren't angry. They weren't even terrified anymore. They were wide, hollow, and filled with a deep, cosmic sorrow that felt terrifyingly real. A slow, agonizing twitch developed in the muscle of his right jaw, a physical manifestation of a throat trying to scream, but finding only ash. When he spoke, his voice used the absolute depth of his vocal resonance attribute. It was a low, guttural, shattered sound that bypassed the microphone, echoing off the high walls of the set. You have a very expensive suit, Dr. Song." The line was completely off script. It was a pure improvisation driven by Lin Chen's character resonance. Jiang Yu froze, his system's script engine stuttering for a fraction of a second. Lin Chen slowly stood up, the metal prop handcuffs clinking softly. He leaned over the wooden dock, his bloodshot eyes staring not at a brilliant psychologist, but at a superficial, heartless executioner. "And you see a profile. You see data. You see a monster." Lin Chen's voice began to tremble, rising slightly, carrying the raw, biographical grief of his own 8 years of being ignored by arrogant capital. "But did you look at the floorboards, Doctor? Did you see how deep the damp goes in that apartment? Did you smell the instant noodles? Did you see her favorite tablecloth?" Lin Chen suddenly slammed both of his bound hands against the wooden railing. The heavy thud shattered the hypnotic fog of Jiang Yu's charm aura, like glass. "She died in the dark," Lin Chen roared, his face contorting into a mask of pure, devastating agony, tears bursting from his eyes in a flawless explosion of controlled emotion. "She died screaming my name, and I was at the store buying eggs because she told me to. I wasn't calculating. I was late. I was just late." The explosion of raw human grief was so monumental, so agonizingly pure, that it completely obliterated the artificial glossy charisma of Jiang Yu's idol system. The background extras in the gallery forgot to act. Several of them began to cry genuinely. Director Feng gripped his desk, tears welling in his own eyes. Jiang Yu stood inches away, his face turning pale as a sheet. Under the direct, unyielding counter-pressure of Lin Chen's grade S+ artistry, Jiang Yu felt his system's energy draining rapidly. His charm aura collapsed entirely. He looked clumsy, superficial, and entirely fake standing next to the devastating reality of Lin Chen's performance. His knees trembled, and he instinctively took 2 steps back, his eyes filled with a very real, unscripted terror. He had been executed on camera. "Cut!" Director Feng screamed, his voice cracking with pure artistic ecstasy. "Cut! Masterpiece! Absolute masterpiece!" The courtroom set erupted into a chaotic frenzy of applause. Lin Chen instantly drew a deep breath, the tears stopping as his emotional matrix returned to equilibrium. Main mission completed. The courtroom execution. Performance evaluation. Grade S+. Absolute domination. Legend footprint. Host successfully crushed the idle traffic prosperity system in a direct frame-to-frame confrontation. System rewards issued. Reputation points plus 5,000. Total 7,300. Ability unlocked. Master Actor Templates Level 1. Unlocked. Rival system status. Damaged. Forced dormancy for 30 days. Lin Chen wiped his face with a towel handed to him by a frantic assistant. He looked over at Jiang Yu, who was currently being supported by his manager, looking physically ill and sweating profusely as his system suffered a backlash. Lin Chen adjusted his collar, his eyes burning with an unquenchable, regal fire. The first rival had fallen. The path to the throne of the screen was open. Chapter 13. The Master Template and the Rap Party. The thunderous applause inside the courtroom set took a long time to die down. While the crew members rushed to adjust the lighting for the final cutaways, Jiang Yu was practically carried off the set by his frantic manager. His face was entirely devoid of color. The temporary psychological backlash from his system's forced dormancy, leaving him physically drained and shivering. Lin Chen didn't spare him another glance. He stepped out of the wooden defendant's dock, his posture immediately shifting from the broken, trembling Shu Wei back to his usual calm, collected self. Lin Chen. Director Feng sprinted over, his face flushed red with excitement. He slammed his hands down on Lin Chen's shoulders, his voice shaking. Unbelievable. That line about the expensive suit, that wasn't in the script, but it completely elevated the entire theme of the film. You didn't just act. You rewrote the emotional gravity of the climax. Thank you, Director Feng. The environment just pushed me into that headspace. Lin Chen replied with a modest, polite smile. Rest up, kid. That's an official wrap on your scenes. Director Feng beamed, turning to shout at the crew. Everyone prepare for the final standard shots. Tonight, the drinks are on the production team. Lin Chen bowed respectfully to the director and the remaining crew members before walking back toward his private dressing room. The moment the door clicked shut behind him, isolating him from the chaotic noise of the studio lot, he sank into the couch and closed his eyes. System, open the rewards matrix, Lin Chen commanded silently. Ding. Processing mission completion data for the courtroom execution. Host performance evaluation. Grade S+, Transcendent Artistry, Domain Domination. Target analysis. Jiang Yu's absolute charm aura and forced audience empathy have been completely shattered. Target system has entered a 30-day critical dormancy period. Mission rewards distributed. Reputation points. Plus 5,000. Total 7,300. Core system function unlocked. Master Actor Templates, Level 1. Ding. System notice. The Master Actor Templates function allows the host to summon the absolute peak acting essence of legendary performers from global film history. By equipping a template, the host's base attributes will temporarily align with a legendary master's signature style. Level 1 Template Inventory initialized. Available templates for purchase. 1. The Method Master, Marlon Brando Baseline, cost 4,000 reputation points. 2. The Villainous Sovereign, Heath Ledger Baseline, cost 4,000 reputation points. 3. The Eastern Noir Legend, Tony Leung Baseline, cost 4,000 reputation points. Lin Chen stared at the interface in his mind, his heart rate accelerating slightly. This wasn't just a slight boost to his micro-expressions or physical control anymore. This was the literal essence of the greatest actors to have ever lived. If he combined his own character resonance with the template of a global legend, his performances would cross the threshold of mere acting into something borderline supernatural. Keep the points for now, Lin Chen murmured. With 7,300 points, he could afford one, but he wanted to wait until his next script to choose the perfect match. That evening, the grand banquet hall of a 5-star Shanghai hotel was packed to capacity for the official rap party of The Silent Witness. Streamers hung from the ceilings, and towering ice sculptures flanked the buffet tables. Almost the entire cast and crew were present, drinking and laughing. The only notable absences were Chen Hong and Lu Feng, who had completely withdrawn their presence from the project, and Zhang Yu, who had allegedly flown back to Beijing under the guise of a sudden health emergency. The moment Lin Chen entered the banquet hall, wearing a sharp, simple black turtleneck and a tailored blazer, the atmosphere in the room shifted. A month ago, he was a nameless, unrepresented extra who had to beg for a bottle of water. Tonight, the moment he stepped through the door, prominent screenwriters, veteran camera operators, and mid-tier actors immediately stood up, glasses raised, eager to catch his eye. "Teacher Lin, over here!" a prominent supporting actor called out, gesturing to a table near the front. Lin Chen smiled gracefully, navigating the crowd with a polished ease that made him look like an industry veteran rather than a newcomer. He eventually made his way to the main VIP table, where director Feng and movie emperor Gu Jin were already deep into their wine. "Ah, the monster of the hour has arrived," Gu Jin laughed, standing up to clink his glass directly against Lin Chen's. The veteran actor's eyes were full of genuine warmth. "Kid, I watched the raw playback of your courtroom scene this afternoon. I told old Feng right then and there, if you don't win Best Supporting Actor at the Golden Orchid Awards this year, I'm burning my own trophies." "Teacher Gu flatters me too much," Lin Chen said, taking a sip of his wine. "Without your pressure in the interrogation room, I wouldn't have understood how to anchor Shu Wei's silence." "Listen to him, so modest," Director Feng chuckled, leaning forward. "Lin Chen, let's talk business. The editing team is working overnight. We are pushing for an October release to hit the festival circuits. But more importantly, now that you are officially a free agent, major agencies are going to start sniffing around you. Star Horizon is completely out of the picture, but Kingstone Media and Emperor Entertainment are already asking me for your contact details." Before Lin Chen could answer, a sleek, expensive business card was slid across the white tablecloth, stopping right next to his glass. Lin Chen looked up. Standing beside the table was a woman in her late 30s, dressed in an immaculate, sharp crimson pantsuit. Her hair was pulled back into a ruthless tight bun, and her eyes carried the sharp, calculating gaze of an apex predator. The entire table went quiet. Even Director Feng's eyes widened slightly in surprise. It was Qin Lian, the legendary Iron Manager of the domestic entertainment industry, the woman who had personally engineered the careers of 3 different movie kings and 2 global superstars. She never attended standard rap parties unless she was hunting. "Director Feng, Teacher Gu," Qin Lian nodded politely to the veterans, before turning her absolute focus onto Lin Chen. "Lin Chen, I don't care about Kingstone or Emperor Entertainment. Tomorrow morning my assistant will send a contract to your lodging. No restrictions, absolute creative freedom, a dedicated 5-person PR team, and a starting salary that triples what Star Horizon was offering." Qin Lian leaned down slightly, her voice dropping to a sharp, commanding tone. "I don't sign idols, and I don't care about internet traffic. I sign legends. Walk with me, and I will put you on the stage of the Cannes Film Festival within 2 years." The surrounding actors who were eavesdropping practically choked on their drinks. Such an offer from the Iron Manager was unheard of. Lin Chen looked down at the sleek black business card, then back up at Qin Lian. His expression didn't show a hint of a rookie's excitement or overwhelm. He remained perfectly calm, his eyes reflecting a deep, unshakable confidence. He picked up the card, spinning it slowly between his fingers. Ding. Reality Observation Level 2, active. Target, Qin Lian. Analysis. Heart rate steady, breathing controlled. She is completely sincere, but expects absolute compliance. She views the host as a diamond weapon. Cannes within 2 years? Lin Chen spoke, a faint, dangerous smile playing on his lips. He set the card down and looked directly into the legendary manager's eyes. "Sister Qin, your offer is very generous. But you've mistaken one thing. Qin Lian's eyebrows twitched. Oh, what's that? I don't need a manager to drag me to Cannes, Lin Chen said, his voice quiet, yet carrying a regal weight that silenced the entire VIP table. I need a partner who can keep up with the speed at which I am going to conquer this industry. If your team is fast enough, we can talk tomorrow. Qin Lian stared at him, completely stunned by the sheer audacity of a rookie setting terms for her. But as she looked into his cold, bottomless eyes, a slow, thrilled smile spread across her face. Fair enough, Qin Lian whispered, raising her glass to him. Let's see how fast you can run, Lin Chen.